Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivashikam Vitamscha Om Ajnana Timarandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhistam Supurakam Guruganara Sesha Sambhushitam Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Vidam Ujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwagurun Shah Divyad Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchanda Baranam Balarka Chalanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sarikavaranam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Yashishvara Sridharam Bansha Kopatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishay Namah. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Hidden Treasure of the Sweet Absolute, by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj, translation and commentary by Srila Guru Maharaj, and the translation into English by Sri Swarupananda Prabhu. Okay. Starting with verse number 20. Najayate mriyate va karachin nayam bhutva bhavitava nabhuya ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The soul is neither born nor dies. It has neither been nor will it be created, because it is unborn and eternal. It is ever youthful yet ancient. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. So we're reading from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, titled Sankhya-yoga, and this is verse number 20. The soul is neither born nor dies. It has neither been nor will it be created, because it is unborn and eternal. It is ever youthful yet ancient. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. The soul is eternal, and unlike the body, when the body is destroyed, when the body becomes old or damaged or suffers some fatal injury, the soul will continue. So if the body is no longer capable of functioning, then the soul will go to another body. So, najayate mriyate va karachin ayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuya ajo nitya shashvatam yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The soul is neither born nor dies. It has neither been nor will it be created, because it is unborn and eternal. It is ever youthful yet ancient. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. So this chapter deals with the constitution of the soul, Sankhya-yoga. And this is very good information, because there are not many, we cannot think of other scriptures which will give you the constitution of the soul. They won't tell you about your real eternal existence as a spirit soul. But this chapter will describe that in a very illuminating way. Veda vinasinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam katam sa purusha partha kim gata yati hantikam. O Partha, knowing the soul to be indestructible, eternal, birthless, and immutable, How can a person kill or cause anyone to be killed? Apart from knowing the soul to be indestructible, eternal, birthless, and immutable, how can a person kill or cause anyone to be killed? So, because how can someone kill or cause anyone to be killed? Because the soul can never be killed. The soul is eternal, indestructible. Vashamsi jirnani yata vihaya navani grinati naroparani tata shadirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. As a person adopts new garments, discarding those that are old and worn, similarly the soul continues to adopt new bodies, leaving those that are old and useless. So, very well explained. As a person adopts new garments, as a person puts on new clothing, discarding those that are old and worn. When your clothing is no longer, it's full of holes, it's old, the cloth is frayed and falling apart, then you will simply change. So as a person adopts new garments, discarding those that are old and worn, similarly the soul continues to adopt new bodies, leaving those that are old and useless. So then persons are changing their clothing with regularity. So the same way, when we're born, we have a young body and we're not anticipating these things. But we can also see that the body is actually changing continually, just as garments will become old and useless. So when one is young, one is already seeing so many changes of bodily existence, because a small baby is growing and all those previous bodies, they're no longer visible. One's already changed. One's already changed bodies so many times. So, in this way, one can perceive. Anyani samyati navani dehi. Similarly, as one changes clothes, one is accepting new bodies. We may not be conscious of that, but it is happening continually. It's natural, because we can't, from our finite position, it's very hard for us to consider or think of or understand eternal existence. We're not able to see. We can't see beyond the boundaries of our own time, of our own existence in time and space. It's hard for us to see beyond that. Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati bhavaka nachainam kledayan yapo nachainam kledayan yapo nashoshati maruta nashoshayati maruta nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavaka nachainam kledayant yapo nashoshayati maruta. Weapons cannot pierce the soul, and fire cannot burn it. Water cannot wet it, and air cannot dry it. The weapons cannot pierce the soul, and fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, and air cannot dry it. What does this mean? It means the soul is not constituted it's not made up of any material elements. A material existence, such as the body, can obviously be pierced by weapons or burnt by fire, or water can wet us or drown us even. and air cannot dry it, because the soul is beyond all the material elements. It is not material. Achedyo yam, adayo yam, akledyo shosha evacha, nitya sarvagata stanur, achalo yam, sanatana, avyakto yam, achintyo yam, avikaryo yam uchate, tasmad evam vidit vainam, nanu shochitum arhasi. It is said that the soul is indivisible and cannot be burned, moistened, or dried. It is eternal. It reaches all planes, yet remains still, immovable, and ever-present. It is imperceptible, inconceivable, and untransformable by the sixfold transformations of birth, existence, growth, maturity, or sustaining one's position, diminution, and destruction. These are 6 changes of the body: birth, existence, growth, maturity, then diminution, and then destruction. So it is said that the soul is indivisible and cannot be burned, moistened, or dried. It is eternal. It reaches all planes, yet remains still, immovable, and ever-present. It is imperceptible, inconceivable, and untransformable by the sixfold transformations. Therefore, knowing the nature of the soul is such, there is no reason to lament for it. So this is divine. This is what we call knowledge of the soul, knowledge of the constitution of the soul, beyond our material perception. This is what is being described here in this chapter called Sankhya-yoga. It is giving a clear understanding of the soul. And here, Krishna explaining these points, Krishna says, there's no reason to lament for the condition of any soul. The soul is not destroyed, it's not created, it's always existing. Perhaps we cannot understand that or perceive that in our bodily existence, but this is actually the nature of divinity, especially the individual's existence in this finite world. But it's the soul, as being explained here, is not subject to the limitations of time, space, or anything of that matter. Atachainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi chatasya e dhruvam mrityor dhruvam janmam mritasya cha tasmad apariharyerte natvam shochitum arhasi. And, O best of warriors, even if you think that the soul is perpetually subject to birth and death, you still have no reason to lament. For one who is born, death is certain. And for one who dies, he must be reborn to undergo the reactions of his past actions. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. So we may not know, and we may not want to know, when our time in this world will end, but we know for everyone who's born, their ultimate demise, the end of this body, is certain. No one has ever avoided that. You may hear about so many persons that can prolong this existence. I will call it this mundane existence, but actually everyone who is born is subject to death. For one who is born, death is certain. And for one who dies, he must be reborn to undergo the reactions of his past actions. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. So here is something that we all know, that we're going to eventually die. But here, Krishna adds, and for one who dies, he must be reborn to undergo the reactions of his past actions. So People are not aware of that at all. How their actions will not only produce their future body, that's said by your consciousness. You'll also be forming, you can say, your next body. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam yam yam vapi smaram bhavam always yam yam vapi smaram bhavam jaji. I'll have to look this verse up because always my forgetfulness is playing into effect. That is okay, 8.6. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam jajit yanti kalevaram tam tame vaite konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. That as you're leaving this body, well, during this body, yam yam vapi smaram bhavam jajit yanti kalevaram tam tame vaite konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. Now, that means that your consciousness is forming your successive birth. Your consciousness will form where you will go next. At the time of death, your consciousness will take you to another bodily existence. And you'll get that body according to the activities that you've engaged in, because your activities are creating a particular consciousness. You can understand that all your activities are creating a particular consciousness. And you'll get that according to that consciousness. That consciousness will help you form another birth. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajat yanti kalevaram tam tame vaite konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. O son of Kunti, one who has always thought of a particular object will remember it and attain to it after leaving the body. And one example we have of that is Bharat Maharaj, who when thinking of a small deer that he was protecting, fell to his death, and then took that kind of birth as a deer, according to his mental activities. Avyakta dini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidananyeva tatra ka paridevana. Avyakta dini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidananyeva tatra ka paridevana. O Bharata, when all living beings are unmanifest before birth, manifest between birth and death, and again unmanifest at death, why lament for them? This is why you will lament. Krishna says he'll give you, he says, even if you think that the soul is perpetually subject to birth and death, that's the premise. The soul is always, even if you think, incorrectly we'll say, but even if you think the soul is perpetually subject to birth and death, you have no reason to lament. We say the soul is not subject to death, but Krishna says here to Arjuna, even if you think wrongly, you can say, even if you think that the soul is subject to birth and death, you still have no reason to lament. For one who is born, death is certain, and for one who dies, he must be reborn to undergo the reactions of his past actions. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. Then Krishna continues with this discussion. Even if you think the soul is subject to be born and then to die, we know that's happening with the body, but not with the soul. But then Krishna says, even with this kind of thinking, avyakta dini bhutani, vyakta, madhyani bharata avyakta nirananyeva tatra na paridevana. O Bharata, when all living beings are unmanifest before birth, manifest between birth and death, and again unmanifest at death, why lament for them? Even if you think that that's what happens, the soul is perpetually born and perpetually dies, then why should you even be concerned about that? Because it's the inevitable movement of time. But Krishna is presenting this contrary to fact. It's not that the soul is born and died, but he says, even if you think like that, still the living entity will be in a stage of non-manifestation, manifestation, and then unmanifest again. But still, you cannot change that. So why be so concerned about something that is just happening? Now, actually, as I said, Krishna is saying this, even if you think like this, that the soul is perpetually born and dies, and while it's not born, one is in an unmanifest state. Still, Krishna says, why is that of concern to you? That you cannot change that if that's what you think is happening. So, ascharyavat pashyati kaschidinam, ascharyavat varati tataiva chanya, ascharyavat chainam anya shrinoti, shrudvapi enam vedana chaiva kaschit. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidinam, ascharyavat varati tataiva chanya, ascharyavat chainam anya shrinoti, Shrudvapi enam veda nachaiva kaschit. Some see the soul as astonishing. Some describe it as astonishing. Some hear of it as astonishing, while others, though hearing about it, know nothing of it. Some see the soul as astonishing. Some describe it as astonishing. Some hear of it as astonishing, while others, though hearing about it, know nothing of it. So, actually, when you consider what is the nature of the soul, then you'll consider that what the soul is undergoing, what's happening in this world, it's astonishing that embodied souls are going through continuation of birth and death, and the activities that happen in this world. It's hard during one's conditioned existence to understand, and one will think when one hears about the nature of the soul, oh, that's astonishing, that's incredible. But others, when they hear about it, they won't know anything. It's beyond their. Even to hear about the soul, it's hard for them to understand. There are many different persons in this world that, and even different faiths, they don't accept the existence of an eternal soul. Then you'll hear statements like, people don't know that one has an eternal existence, that one is the eternal servant of the Lord, that one has an eternal relationship with Krishna. People don't know about that. When you try to explain it, it's hard for them to understand what is being described in this chapter, because it's something they've never thought about. While others, though hearing about it, know nothing of it. Dehi nityam avadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. O Bharata, the soul dwelling within the bodies of all living beings is eternal and cannot be slain. Therefore, you need lament for no one. So you can see that Krishna is approaching this through different ways of seeing. This chapter is about this description of the eternal soul. And we see this is enlightening for so many people, many persons. When someone close to them passes away, and they hear the description of this second chapter about the constitution of the soul, it enlightens them. It enables them to come to grips with the grief that they're suffering from their estrangement or the lamentation from someone who passes away. So, Swadharmamapi chaviksha navikam pitum arasi dharmyadi yadashreyonyat shatri yasya navidyate. Moreover, considering your natural duty, you have no reason to waver, since there is no action more auspicious for a warrior than a battle for justice. So, for not only is Krishna talking with Arjuna about the eternal nature of the soul, he says, so and we know from the beginning that Arjuna was in great lamentation about having to fight against his relatives, his grandparents, and his grandfather, Bhishma Dev, and so many other persons who are family relations and friends. And even those who are not friends, they're still part of the greater dynasty. The Kurus are all part of the same, basically, the same family, and Arjuna's in lamentation. So Krishna is first here explained the nature of the eternal soul. You cannot kill anyone because they're all eternally existing. But then he says, moreover, considering your natural duty, you have no reason to waver, since there is no action more auspicious for a warrior than a battle for justice. And then Krishna also says, and let us not forget that what you're fighting here for is justice. This is a case of benefiting everyone who is living who is under that wants to see some correction to the injustices that are going on. So commentary, one's natural duty or swadharma is of two types, relative or absolute, according to the soul's state of either material bondage or liberation, respectively. In the liberated state, the natural function of the soul is purely spiritual devotional service for the transcendental pleasure of the Supreme Lord alone. But in the state of material bondage, a person's natural duty possesses mundane attributes. The conditioned soul accepts various births throughout the 8,400,000 species of life according to his actions, until by the influence of piety he obtains a human birth. Then according to his nature, he may adopt a position and prescribe duty in the God-centered socio-religious system, Daiva Varnashrama, which helps one attain the natural duty of the liberated state. In this respect, the natural duty of the liberated soul is somewhat covered by the relativity of the material world. Yet within the God-centered socio-religious system, it is nonetheless considered a person's natural duty, as for example, smoke-covered fire is still considered fire despite its covering. So here we're hearing of that there is actually the perception, according to one's position in society and one's responsibilities in society, but there is also the perception or understanding of one's eternal responsibilities as a spirit soul. So we are aware of those things. Just here that Arjuna is told about his is given understanding on the spiritual level, but also reminded of his responsibility within the social order. So we also say in relationship with this, that all of us, we have some duties in this world, and they even coincide with our spiritual responsibilities. For instance, someone has a family. They're trying to help the members of their family advance in Krishna consciousness. They're trying to give them some understanding of what is their eternal existence as a spirit soul and related to the Supreme Lord. And along with that, we are also having our own relationship towards the center. The center is the service of Sri Gurudev and his servitors. And we're engaged in that way. Just as Arjuna, he is being given a spiritual understanding by Krishna, but he's also reminded that this is the best activity for a Kshatriya, because you're fighting for a just cause. So both things come together, because Arjuna is being told that you're not really killing anybody if you consider things, I wouldn't say analytically, but if you understand things in terms of spiritual knowledge, this is called Sankhya-yoga, then you can understand that you're not really, these persons all existing eternally before birth, and then after death they will continue to exist. And so how can you think that you're changing that inevitable order? But then Krishna is also saying, along with that spiritual knowledge, that you must fight, because you're fighting for a just cause. The rule of the Kurus is not their way of doing things, that, as it's described, for instance, in the scriptures, they're creating a burden upon this earth in so many ways. So it's Krishna's desire that this situation be corrected, and that his devotee, especially Maharaj Yudhishthira, will be placed in a position of responsibility, as you can say, the king. Yadrichaya chopapanam svargadvaram apavritam sukhina kshatriya parta labante yudam idrisham. O Partha, only the most fortunate warriors are blessed with the opportunity of such a battle, which has come to you like an open door to heaven. O Partha, only the most fortunate warriors are blessed with the opportunity for such a battle, which has come to you like an open door to heaven. So this appeal, Krishna's talking with Arjuna. He's a very valiant warrior, and this will resonate with such a warrior. Only the most fortunate warriors are blessed with the opportunity of such a battle, which has come to you like an open door to heaven. So, for a warrior like Arjuna to hear this will naturally resonate. That is his position within the social order. He's a Kshatriya. Ata chetvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tata swadharmam kirtim cha hitva papam avamshasi. But if you choose not to fight this battle for justice, your religious principles will be lost, fame will desert you, and sin will overcome you. So you can make your decision, but this will be the consequence of if you decide not to fight, especially when he's being guided on this chariot by Krishna himself. But Krishna says, but you may also make the decision not to fight this battle. But if you choose not to fight this battle for justice, your religious principles will be lost, fame will desert you, and sin will overcome you. Because it is actually, you're doing so as your position in the society as a Kshatriya. It's to defend persons and to establish justice. If there's an injustice, a Kshatriya is supposed to correct that. So if you don't do that, then your fame will be lost and you'll be actually doing sinful activities by not fighting. Arjuna is thinking by fighting he'll be doing sinful activities. But Krishna is saying, but if you choose not to fight, that's where you will be committing actual sin. So, as I'm saying, the Bhagavad Gita will be very, if somebody actually understands what's going on in the Bhagavad Gita, it will be like a revelation to them. Because all the arguments that Arjuna presents in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, people today would say, oh, he's very much illuminated when he's talking about not fighting, not wanting to kill even those who are doing wrong, that he doesn't want to hurt his relatives. He'd rather live by begging than perform activities that all the gains that he gets will be tainted by blood from the dead and everything like that. All these people would say, this is very correct. But it's not really what Krishna is saying here. He says, but if you choose not to fight this battle for justice, your religious principles will be lost, fame will desert you, and sin will overcome you. So what is sin? Sin is to not realize one's actual engagement in devotional service. Anything that serves as an obstacle for one's relationship with the Lord through devotional service, that is sin. So, akirtim chapi bhutani katayishyanti te vyayam sambhavitasya chakirtir maranad atirichyate. People will speak of your infamy for all time to come, and for the renowned infamy is worse than death. People will speak of your infamy for all time to come, and for the renowned infamy is worse than death. Now, how Prabhupada says this, Prabhupada describes it, for one who knows honor, dishonor is worse than death. But here we understand that people will speak of your infamy. You'll be infamous, by leaving your responsibility aside, having the Lord personally agree to be your charioteer, and you will abandon everything. Then people will speak ill of you for all time to come, and for the renowned, that kind of infamy or dishonor is worse than death. So, even though we are not in this, in the plane of, the divine plane which Arjuna finds himself in, he's an eternal associate of the Lord, but nobody in this world wants to do something infamous and wrong. Nobody wants to be in that position. Nobody who has some proper understanding of the value of life wants to perform wrong actions which people will criticize constantly and for all time to come. Bayad ranad uparatam mamshante tvam maharata yesham cha tvam bahamato bhutva yasi lagavam. The great warriors who highly honor you will ridicule you, considering that you are afraid to fight. You can say you have so many, you may give so many noble arguments that you don't want to kill anyone or cause anyone to be killed. You'd rather live by begging than perform what you consider to be wrong actions. But that's not, whatever you may say, that's not the way people will see you're leaving the battlefield. The great warriors who highly honor you will ridicule you, considering that you are afraid to fight. They'll see it in that way. So, Someone could say, well, I'm resolute. Whatever people may say, I will leave this battlefield. But that's not really the mentality of a Kshatriya. Kshatriya doesn't want to be dishonored. Kshatriya doesn't want to be seen as a coward. Kshatriya doesn't want to see that he left the battlefield out of fear. Avacha vidamscha bahun. Avacha varamscha bahun. Vadishyanti tavahita. Nindantas-tava samartyam tato dugataram nukim. Your enemies will mock you. What could be more painful? Hatova prapshasi svargam jitva va bokshase mahim tasmad utishta kunteya yudhaya kritanischaya. O son of Kunti, if you are killed, you will attain heaven. And if you are victorious, you will enjoy your life on earth. Therefore, being confident of your success, arise for battle. Even if you're killed, it won't be a bad situation. You'll elevate yourself by your actions. And if you are victorious, you will enjoy your life on this earth. So therefore, being confident of your success, arise for battle. Krishna has already said, there's no bad consequence of you fighting. And someone can say, well, one consequence could be that I will die. But Krishna says, but you're acting in a divine cause. Even if you die, you will attain a higher destination. If you are killed, you will attain heaven. If you are victorious, you will enjoy your life on earth. Therefore, being confident of your success, arise for battle. There's no consequence of this action that can lead to any bad consequence. There's nothing that can lead to a bad consequence, whether killed or being victorious. Sukha duke samekritva lava labo jaya jayo tato yudaya yujasva naivam papam avamshasi. Considering pleasure and pain, gain and loss, and victory and defeat to be one and the same, fight. No sin will be incurred by you. Considering pleasure and pain, gain and loss, and victory and defeat to be one and the same, fight. No sin will be incurred by you. Well, of course, Krishna is saying there will be consequences from fighting. We already know there's consequences from fighting. So many friends and persons close to him will die in the battle. There's no way to avoid all the consequences that will come. But Krishna says, considering pleasure and pain, gain and loss. There may be gain, there may be loss, and victory and defeat to be one and the same, fight. No sin will be incurred by you. That's the nature of taking responsibility. One takes responsibility, sometimes that responsibility will lead to so much loss. But one cannot avoid one's responsibility. We are engaged in devotional service to the Lord. It's not everything that we do is always results in gain. We have seen that, for instance, in this modern world, the conditions are so difficult now. They're obviously not of anyone's choosing. Not of anyone's choosing. But I remember that Prabhupada, he commented, when leaders and persons of consequence lie, that causes disease. He says, the lying atmosphere causes disease. It contaminates the Akash. So, that. So in that kind of atmosphere, there may be consequences for all of us. No one can be unaffected by the world in which we live, and yet we're engaging devotional service. So whether we have pleasure and pain in doing so, because we're part of this, we're in this world, gain and loss and victory and defeat, Krishna says, considering them all to be one and the same fight, no sin will be incurred by you. And Eshate Bihita Shankye Eshate Bihita Sankye Buddhir Yoge Tvimam Shrino Buddhya Yukto Yaya Parta Karma Bandham Prahashyasi. I have revealed to you this knowledge, buddhi, of the soul. Now hear from me how to act in this knowledge. How to act in this knowledge, Bhakti Yoga, through which you will be able to free yourself from the bondage of action. I have revealed to you this knowledge, buddhi. Buddhi is knowledge. I have revealed to you this knowledge, buddhi of the soul. Now hear from me how to act in this knowledge, Bhakti Yoga, through which you will be able to be free. You will be able to free yourself from the bondage of action. So we hear knowledge, but then we must act upon that knowledge. Knowledge will lead to action, just as understanding of one's relationship with the Lord. That will lead one to engage in service. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha, once aware of one's relationship with the Lord, we can say that is our knowledge of oneself as spirit soul. Then now hear of how to act in this knowledge, Bhakti Yoga, through which you will be able to free yourself from the bondage of action. Then that's Sambandha Abhideya. Abhideya means acting in devotional service. Commentary. It will be revealed that Buddhi Yoga, yoga of wisdom, is a singular path. When Buddhi Yoga is seen to be limited by the ideal of action, it is known as Karma Yoga. When it extends beyond action up to the peak of knowledge, it is known as Jnana Yoga or Sankhya-yoga. And when transcending the limitations of both action and knowledge, it touches Bhakti or devotion. It is then known as Bhakti Yoga or perfectly pure and complete Buddhi Yoga. So Anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karmadya navritam, anukuyena bhakti rutama, anukuyena Krishna nushilanam bhakti utama. Anyabhilashita shunyam, jnana karmadya navritam, Anukuyena Krishna Nushilanam Bhakti Rutama. So actually, Bhakti Yoga goes beyond karma and jnana. And then one is acting in the plane of perfect Bhakti Yoga. Okay. So, let's see. So I believe I'll stop at this point, and tomorrow we'll continue. All right. This is a very nice chapter, and often, as I said, when especially persons of our close to us, our devotees of our community, when they pass away, often this knowledge is read or spoken to their, especially reading this chapter. we read this chapter, the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, especially to the family of departed souls. Then they can understand something of the nature of the eternal existence of the soul. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Maravaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Ganadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Echai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jao Ete Vignana Shabishta Puran Echai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas Dasabar Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Abhilas Echai Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriya Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamodas Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtatara Sadashi Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev-Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath, Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Premzigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudhi, Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Vishvavarinya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmawacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Madhacharya Vrinda Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan, Sham Guna Radhakunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai, Shri Purushottam Dham Ki Jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jo Ki Jai, Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya, Shri Nrsinga Dev Ki Jai, Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Sripad Bhakti Bandhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Gaur Brahmanande Hari Hari Bol.